All right, everybody, welcome back. And we earlier on we had hosted Engineer Abel Rotich, who is vying for the position of the first vice president, and now we are having a candidate for the ordinary council member position, Engineer Shammah KITEME. As usual, my co-host is Diana Waidanji, and I will hand over to her to take us to the next stage.
Thank you, Engineer Ndolo. So we'll have a chat with Engineer Shammah today. He's the one on the hot seat. So ideally, he'll be introducing himself, telling us about his work, his engineering background, his manifesto, what is he vying for, what does he bring to the table, or what has he brought to the table before in IEK. From there, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. So meanwhile, ensure all your microphones are muted and all your videos. And then from then we'll have a question time where you'll ask all the questions and mute your microphones. Ask if you're in a noisy place, you can put it on the chat and then we'll read it out. So from then, Engineer Shammah will give us his parting shot and his speech telling us on why him, why should we vote for him out of all other 21 candidates, or rather among the 6 candidates that we'll be voting for. So welcome, Engineer Shammah. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ndolo and Diana. I really appreciate this innovation that you brought to this campaign. The fact that we can have webinars, it has been an innovative idea. And thank you very much for the service you've done to the engineering fraternity through these skills and giftings that you have. My name is Engineer Shammah KITEME. I am a civil engineer. I graduated from the University of Nairobi Department of Civil and Construction Engineering. And then I joined a contractor where I worked for about 3 months. I knew that I wanted to be registered as a professional engineer and practice as an engineer. So working under a contractor I wasn't very comfortable. So I moved on to a consulting engineering firm where I worked as an assistant civil structural engineer. I worked with Mangatabi Patel and Aishwalal Bechanbai Patel, who is a fellow of Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and directly under Engineer Ratna Hirani. From there, I moved on to work with a hospital, initially as a project manager. Then I rose through the ranks to be director of engineering and facilities. I had establishment of over 200 reporting to me. I was a senior executive. Then we middle level managers reporting to me, and then staff reporting to them. And then I worked for a total of 7 years. Before then, I left employment and I founded my firm, Centrum Services Limited. We are civil structural engineers and project managers. And our offices are in Nairobi, based in Karen. I've largely practiced in structural engineering and wastewater engineering, where I've designed wastewater systems, besides designing buildings, structural buildings, and such like. In total, I have over 10 years experience as an engineer, and I'm registered with IEK as a professional engineer. And I'm a corporate member of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Now, I'm vying to the position of ordinary council member in the IEK elections, council elections 2020 to 2022. I've been serving in the council that is finishing its term as an ordinary council member. And during my term, I've been involved in staff that has been beneficial to engineers. Primarily, I was able to attend most of the council meetings. There were initiatives to meet people, state officers, government authorities, and engage them as a council on matters affecting engineers, and I participated in them. And I also chaired the strategic planning committee, which delivered the strategic plan 2019-2023. I was involved in areas of advocacy. I published articles advancing interests of engineers in the dailies, particularly the Daily Nation and the Standard. I was involved in mentorship of students and high school students, university students, and graduate engineers. I participated in 2 PIPs. One was held in Mombasa and another one in Nakuru. I was also involved in general policy issues at the council level. And so I've been largely involved in the affairs of running IEK for the last 2 years, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that engineers gave me. I feel I served and I did my best. The other thing I was able to do is that I represented IEK in the review of the Building Code 2020. I was seconded by the council to a committee that was appointed by Major General retired Dr. Gordon Kehalangwa. And I'm glad to report that President Uhuru has just ascended to the bill that anchors Building Code under the NCA Act. The Building Code was under the Local Authorities Act, which was repealed with the coming into force of the new Constitution 2010. And so Building Code could not be anchored there anymore. In any case, we have Local Authorities Act, not the Local Government Act anymore. We have the County Government Act, not Local Authorities Act anymore. And so the Building Code needed a new home. And the government decided it will be anchored under NCA Act. And the NCA Act had to be amended. So it was amended by adding section 5G2. One of the good things with the Building Code and having participated in it is that there are so many gains for engineers. Civil structural engineers, mechanical engineers, and electrical engineers, because the Building Code touches on so many aspects of the built environment. I will point out that as opposed to previously where mechanical engineers and electrical engineers used to be lumped together as building service engineers, the Building Code now is going to recognize mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, and their drawings and designs will be required by the time the building is getting approved, just the way we've been having the structural drawings and architectural drawings required before permits are issued for construction to begin. So then another activity I was involved in and I'm quite happy about is that I sat in the National Implementation Committee on Eurocodes, that is structural Eurocodes. We have been, as structural engineers, we have been using British standards. They have since been withdrawn back in 2010. So Britain itself withdrew the British standards and it adopted Eurocodes. And so Kenya has been adopting Eurocodes, and I'm in the National Implementation Committee, and I'm also in the Technical Committee on Eurocodes under Kenya Bureau of Standards. I've also been involved in an initiative called Coalition of Built Environment Professionals, which came in to look and study why buildings are collapsing and no one is held accountable. And our involvement resorted to a policy paper, and we have a bill now in Parliament, spearheaded by Senator Sylvia Kasanga. I've also been involved in engaging companies like Autodesk, Bosch, Doshi, MRM, ArcelorMittal, and encourage them to partner with IEK. And they have participated in our own functions. And it is one way of building partnerships and networks. I've also been involved in interacting with engineers across the world, from Canada, US, South Africa, Egypt, all over the place. And I'm proud because we're able to do networks. I'm privileged to have done projects that feasibility studies were done by American engineers, that I ended up doing the design as a Kenyan engineers. I commissioned the project with Australian engineers, and the supervision I partnered with engineers from UK. So basically, that has exposed me and given me a global approach to engineering. And I'm quite passionate when I talk of stuff like Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, and Dublin Accord, because I've interacted with engineers all across Brazil, Singapore, and all that. And so that's maybe is a long and short about me. I pointed out that I've been involved in publishing articles and pieces to pass out knowledge about engineering and all that. My manifesto is anchored on 4 points. Number 1 is policy advocacy. I'm very keen to make sure that engineers are involved in the legislation and the policy framework that affects their practice. And from what I've shared, I've already been involved in that. And I'm also very keen to continue being involved in that, because I know there are gaps, legal gaps and otherwise. And my involvement in the building code particularly exposed me to the detail that you need to go if you are to gain in the process of advocacy. My other action item is actually on engineers' welfare. And engineers' welfare cuts across betterment and what is good for engineers in general. And I'm keen to get initiatives like schemes of service, the scale of fees that has been around since 2013 but never ratified. And basically looking at ways that engineers can put food on their tables and shelter over their heads. We need to do this and tie it with advocacy, so that those areas that touch on the welfare of engineers, they are enacted as law and policy, because then they cannot be changed easily. And then when it becomes law, everyone is now compelled to implement it, because there has to be enforcement. My other action item is actually capacity building, leading to empowerment of engineers. And I dream of this situation whereby we can come up with a platform where we can get all our engineers in Kenya and their specializations on, and people just need to log in and look for a geotechnical engineer, for example, a telecommunication engineer, and they're able to get to access contacts of engineers who are practicing in our country. So that is one way. The other way is basically encouraging firms to come together and build joint ventures to be able to get these jobs that are going to Chinese and stuff like that. I've been exposed in interacting with engineers across the board, and there are emerging areas of practice. For example, structural engineers need to get really on board with building information modeling, BIM. Issues of digital engineering in asset management are also emerging. And definitely, I'm keen to ensure that our engineers are equipped with those kind of exposures. So basically, I want to pursue these key 3 items, which I've coined an acronym I'm calling AWE. A standing for advocacy, W for welfare, and E for empowerment. Now, this will be tied with the full implementation of the strategic plan. And having participated in the strategic plan, I'm aware if we implement the strategic plan, IEK has a potential to achieve 50% of its potential, because the strategic plan is quite detailed. It has 5 key goals. Goal number 1 is to grow IEK membership to 20,000 by the year 2022. And this touches on ideas on how to involve graduates, students, corporates, and fellow members of IEK. We are detailing the implementation matrix, the action that should be taken to achieve this goal. The other goal is relevance. And this touches on making sure that IEK is a go-to institution for all engineers in Kenya. We have detailed initiatives like CSR activities, issues to do with schemes of service, of course, policy advocacy, engagement with media, just to make sure that IEK is a go-to institution for engineers in Kenya. The other goal is, that is goal number 3, is expertise for IEK members. This basically coming up with initiatives that enable engineers to grow in their areas of specialization. This involves networking events, lectures, research and publication. For example, we know that procurement has really taken a lot of space hitherto reserved for engineers. And we're asking ourselves, why then do we come up with a course on procurement where engineers are equipped? And this course can be certified by the institution relevant, or the body relevant is certifying procurement professionals in Kenya. The fourth goal is that we are looking at growing the revenue of IEK to 600 million by the year 2023. And the initiatives include, of course, when you grow membership, subscriptions improve. We are looking at selling of merchandise. We're looking at various ways actually to grow our revenues, functions, getting revenue by getting sponsors and stuff like that. The last goal is on institutional capacity building, which is aimed at strengthening IEK. Now, we all know as engineers, we are apt to coming up with engineers with the consulting firms that remain pocket consultancies. I think IEK has suffered some percentage of that practice of engineers. And so IEK needs structures. It needs policies, procedures, and protocols. And we need the secretariat to be equipped so that we have staff employed for the right roles. And the strategic plan has a new organization structure which has a CEO and 4 direct reportees, and then other staff below them. So basically, I am keen to see that the strategic plan is fully implemented. And if it is fully implemented, it will be a big gain for our institution. So basically, I want to stop there about describing who I am and my manifesto. And then invite questions if the moderators are okay with my initial statements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Shammah. Yes, we are very okay with that. So anyone with a question to Engineer Shammah or a comment, this is the time to ask. Yes, Dolo.
Okay, as we wait for members to come up with their question, as a moderator, I would like to ask 1 or 2 questions. Engineer, during the last, I think last year, 2018, 2019, there was a situation whereby some Kenyans were being mistreated in the SGR, and most of them are, it's said to have been engineers and technicians. And you organized a demonstration, and somehow, unfortunately, you pulled out. People are saying you grew a cold feet the last minute. What happened, and why didn't the meeting continue, and there was no statement after the presidential dinner?
Thank you very much for the question. Yes, indeed, on 23rd July 2018, we had invited a demo, a protest, a civil protest. We followed all the protocols to make sure that it is legally recognized. There was overwhelming feedback from engineers. They wanted to come out and voice concerns. We prepared petition, and the petition was widely circulated. In the process of doing that, there were conversations within the council, and definitely we agreed with the President Collins Juma that the protests may not continue the way it was planned, and rather there should be ways of pursuing the issues that were up, and especially in the document that we released, and pursuing them through advocacy, interacting with senior government officials and pursue the same issues. So then that informed the decision not to continue with the protests, though well intentions and all that. I will hasten to say that you will all remember that on 4th March this year, 2020, we had actually a protest in town to celebrate the World Engineering Day, which was recognized by UNESCO through the lobbying from World Federation of Engineering Organizations. And so yes, engineers eventually managed to be in the streets to mobilize. They managed to be in the streets and to raise a voice about the issues affecting them. So what we must know is that there are various ways. Going to the streets and protesting is one way, and we have seen lawyers and doctors and teachers on the streets and raising their issues. So there should not be fear about that or any doubt. It's one way of us raising our own issues. But advocacy has so many other elements. I must hasten to say that. So that is not only one way. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Engineer Bosuben? Bosuben, engineer? Okay. Engineer,
Yeah.
advocacy is called for, but sentiments has is that as IEK, which is mandated to fight for the welfare of engineers, you know very well that the Engineers Board of Kenya should be a bit hard on members, and IEK as a welfare society should be trying to smooth the things on that in that sense. So, would it be wrong for us as engineers to stand up and be vocal about things, and IEK be seen outside to be championing the rights and the fights for engineers?
I'm an advocate of being vocal. Mm-hmm. Personally, I am vocal, I think so. At least those people we have been in class with since the high school campus, my undergraduate and my postgraduate, they know I'm quite, I come out on issues. And I believe engineers and engineering has to become vocal. There has been attempts, and you'll appreciate, you've seen like Engineer Mutulili going on TV when the precious talent academy kids died because of an accident there that the building collapsed. There was media engagement. I saw Engineer Joshua Nyamai. I saw Engineer Matalanga also on TV about the issue. And I know a couple of others. When about the expressway, we were on media again. So, but what we need to do is to ramp up those. They have been few and far in between. We have to get educative sessions of the media. We have to get sessions to sensitize the public on the role of engineers in the economy and all that. taking a rightful position. That is, I'm actually very passionate about that. And I publish articles to that effect, arguing the case for engineers very strongly, the involvement with the Big Four agenda, and stuff like that. So basically, I do believe engineers have to be vocal, and I intend to play that role of making sure the council is quite vocal on engineering issues, or the issues of engineers in this country going forward. Definitely, that's the way we have to go. We have no option.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you for that. And there's an echo from your background. I don't know why. The thing is, I really appreciate the fact that at least Engineer Linda, the CEO of IEK, came out and was on TV and spoke. I really much appreciate that. That vocalness was what we want. You see, engineer, in other capacities, engineers have gone out as on individual capacity. We need to have IEK in an official capacity going out and like being vocal about it. So anybody with a question before we take a break for engineer to have a breather? Engineer Bosuben?
Engineer Bosuben, you have a question? Okay, probably you could reset your mic before you come back. So Engineer Shammah, I have a question on the committees.
Yes.
One concern is first the gender parity in the committees. Like you see the committee, the constitution, the CRC, it doesn't have any lady. That is a very crucial committee. I'm not saying the others are less, but you get what I mean in terms of inclusiveness and everything. I would love to hear your comment on that, on gender parity in committees in the engineering institution, and also on the involvement of persons with disabilities and the involvement of graduate engineers in the committees. Thank you.
I think then it meant engineers with the disabilities, because as a society first.
Yes.
Thank you for the question, Diana. Let me tell you what has been happening. When we got into the council, we started inviting members to show interest whenever there's a vacancy to appoint board members to particular parastatus. Now, when we invite members to apply, you know, there is the 2/3 rule. We are keen to make sure that if we are sending 3 names, 2 are men or 2 are women and 1 is a man, and or 2 are men and 1 is a woman. It has been very difficult to get ladies apply, and at times we realize now the application that have come in, there is no lady, and if there is a lady, another was maybe not qualified sometimes. So we have been forced time and again to go calling ladies we know to show interest to those boards. So I'll tell you, one of the things is that we have few practicing lady engineers. That's a fact. When I looked at data we had by May 2019, I know there's more current data. We had about 3,000 civil engineers, 1,400 mechanical engineers, 1,700 mechanical engineers, 316 agricultural engineers. And out of those, 2,400 were professional engineers, 3,400 were graduate engineers, 574 were student engineers, and we had only 436 lady engineers. Now, when you look at that, and you send an invitation and you don't have as many invitations, you just have to make a decision. Now, where we are forced to have a lady, like in the board appointments, we just have to propose a name. We go talking to ladies, do you want to serve? Until the one who accepts to serve, we put them there. Now, when we are forming council committees and they are not ladies, I think what we can do is to take the same initiative. And I can tell you my committee, strategic planning committee, which I chaired, we worked hard because we had only engineer Margaret Ogai. We worked hard and we had to secure engineer Monica Bonyo to come on board so that at least we boost the number of ladies. So it has been a challenge getting ladies available, because generally we seem to be having lady engineers. Now, engineers with disabilities, definitely we are deliberate on that in our strategic plan that we need to go out there and bring them on board. Though there is always debate about, yes, if an engineer cannot see, for instance, that's a disability. How does it impact in their professional judgment as a structural engineer and something like that? I know a lawyer who just needs to read and read and read and make a decision from reading and listening is different. But sometimes engineers need to have physical inspection. But generally, we are deliberate in a strategic plan projections to reach out to persons with disabilities, to reach out to gender issues, to reach out to sectors of our society that are disadvantaged generally by the mainstream matters of our society.
All
I don't know
right.
whether I've answered, Diana.
Yeah, you've kind of touched it, and I think let's take a 1 minute break, and then we come back and you tackle the other questions. Is that okay? Let's take a breather, take some water, come back in 1 minute or two.
All right.